So Josue, you and I had a session recently having to do with your, what do we call it? Your anger volcano. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And we started off because you were expecting to have that anger volcano go off because you were going to be having a family meeting, and your mother, who is very good at triggering or erupting your volcano, was going to be present.
That's right.
That's right. Tell me what you would have been prior to our doing our session. What would you have expected your response to be as your mother said this, that, or the other thing? Just give me a little feel for that.
Okay. There are a few things. She likes to help around the house, but when she's staying with me, but for me, that's like babying me. It's like disrespectful in a little way. And so I was hoping to get angry at that. Not hoping, I was expecting to get angry at that. Her point of view about what the Bible and religion and praying does is very specific. And if you don't do it, you're always going to be sad and depressed and whatever. And I was expecting to get angry at that, specifically dealing with my sister who's going through an actual depression and seeking therapy instead of prayer and Bible. So I was expecting a few battles here and there. But yeah, I was expecting to fight at least, out of the 9 days she was going to stay, I was expecting at least 7 to have some form of fighting in them.
All right. As it turns out, however, during that 9 days, if I remember what you were telling me, there was no fighting. In fact, she would say these things and you were more accepting. I mean, didn't necessarily agree with her, but the volcano did not go off. Right. Talk about what really happened.
Well, for example, of the things that I knew were going to trigger me, they did not. When we had the conversation about my sister getting therapy, and she mentioned that she doesn't pray and she doesn't read the Bible, I was able to have an adult conversation with her about like what works for you might not work for her. She has her own spirituality. She doesn't have to prescribe to your methods, and I urge you to go and explore what she does. And it was very level-headed. No screaming needed. And the other thing is that she did go ahead and, without asking me or whatever, took all my dirty laundry and brought it downstairs and did my laundry. And I would have snapped at this because it's like, first of all, she doesn't sort laundry very well. And the last time she did my laundry, I ended up with pink underwear for a few months. And she put it all together, including a dirty towel that I used to dry my feet. And that's something that before, whatever we did, I would have just snapped. I would have just gone completely violent, yanked the clothes out of her hands and redo them. Yeah, but for whatever reason, it was like, that doesn't matter. Please tell me that you at least use hot water. That's as far as that went.
Well, okay. So see, now I'm putting this in the category of what I call impossible, meaning it's beyond the reach of typical man-made methods. We did one session with the unseen therapist regarding this. We anticipated what your mother may be saying, et cetera, and doing and all of that, and your anger, your volcano response to that, but an unseen therapist about that. And when you actually got there in the circumstance, which is the ultimate test, okay, I think you said there was one little minor spike in the whole 9 days, but that went up and down and was quick, right?
Yeah, it was quick in the sense that it could have escalated. But then a friend of mine was also staying with us, and I have a very tiny apartment, so it's a lot of people in too few feet of space. And she just started like going off on him. And I was like, why are you doing that? And I got angry at her because she would not stop. But then we noticed that he had his headphones on, so he never heard what she was saying. So it was like, you better not know. We laughed it off a little bit, like, oh yeah, it's better that you don't know. And that was it.
Now, there's another thing that happens, and another reason I put this in the impossible category, is we seem to have taken care of not only that anger issue, but this has spread out into other areas that would typically trigger you in anger. For example, traffic and incidences in your workplace. Those seem to have just, at least for the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yes.
And if I recall it right, these other anger possibilities, traffic in the workplace, were frequent daily occurrences. And now you've been 2 or 3 weeks and none of it happened. Talk about that some.
In regards to the traffic thing, I think it's just funny because I am a very cantankerous driver. Like, I'm angry at everything and everybody. I feel like everybody's out to get me. I feel like I'm in a fight with everybody for the same space, the same road, the same exit. And especially my biggest trigger in this state of South Carolina is tailgaters, people who are constantly driving at super high speeds, super close to your back bumper. Yeah. And it's like anything you do wrong, it's going to be a multi-car accident. So I'm always, I think I drive with one eye to the rear view mirror and one eye on the road. It's like I have, like I'm a chameleon, my eyes turn in different directions. And one thing I noticed just a few days ago, this is like I haven't even looked at the rear view mirror in a few of my rides back and from work. So it's like if anybody was mad at me for going slower than them, I did not notice. So I have been having pleasant rides back and from work, to and for work.
Okay, but if I recall, before this session, you would get angry in one way, shape, or form at something every time you drove.
Every time I drove.
Consistently.
Consistently. At least, I mean, if I'm driving 25 minutes, I would be angry at least 15.
Yeah, okay. And now you drive 25 minutes and it's just a drive.
It's just a drive. I came home. In fact, time is a little bit faster. It's like, how did I get home so fast? Because I'm not paying attention to people I'm angry about.
Okay. And this spills over into the workplace, circumstances in the workplace, coworkers, bosses, whatever. And if I recall what you were telling me earlier before this recording, that volcano would get triggered once or twice a day. You may or may not act on it, but internally the volcano is on its way. Do I have that right?
Yes, you have that very right.
Okay, tell us what happened.
So I deal with translations, and some of the translations are very sensitive data. And we have so many employees that we allow them to request their own translations from the company that translates for us. So that ends up resulting in some people translating things that don't need to be translated, wasting a lot of money. And my position is not to tell people no, but to educate them in a way and tell them, why did you send this for translation? You blah, blah, blah. And try to keep our assets, use our money wisely, maybe.
Yes.
So I can get triggered at everything, like someone sending instructions that are for the worker, not for the client, along with their translation request. So we're wasting 10 cents per word. So I can get angry quite often.
Yeah, okay.
So, but for the past few weeks, I have been monitoring the requests without even some that are like, oh, this person, why did they do this? Let me see how much it's cost to see if it's worth me screaming about. So I'll check the total price of the order. It's like, it's not worth my screaming about. So, and yeah, it's been weird that I'm not angry at work every day a few times. It's
All right.
literally been weird.
Now, getting back to my categorization as for impossible, this is a form of a very well-known, issue for a lot of people called anger management. And there are efforts at taking care of this where people go to anger management classes for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and they get a little better here, a little better there, and so on. This was all done in one session. So that's why I call it impossible. Okay.
Yeah. And a short one of that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. For those of you who would like to have listening in, that would like to have a little shorter version of anger management, this maybe even a lot more effective, try the impossible. Thank you, Josue.
Thank you, Gary.